So in some rivalries, the fight doesn't start when the cage door locks. In this video, I'm going to be going through some of the most explosive and bitter rivalries in UFC history, from destroyed friendships to all-out brawls. And of course, I'm going to be ranking these from least dramatic, least personal to absolute just culturally changing, most personal, chaotic, inside the cage, outside the cage, all of that. So, without further ado, let's get started. There's 10 of these. First one I got Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva. Now, this beef kind of started out of thin air by Chael Sonnen, the original Conor McGregor himself, the OG. This guy was the original, man. Like, he had us all wondering, like, he had us all wanting to watch press conferences. Now, this fight with Anderson Silva, with all the insults he hurled at Silva, from the whole comment about American kids talking about the latest ingenuity, the latest invention in America, technology, computers. That's what he was doing with his American friends as a kid, and he just imagined Anderson Silva and the Brazilian kids playing in the mud. He also said after he beat Silva, he would like Silva's wife to make him a steak just how he likes it, medium rare. I even heard one of the insults. He said after he beat Silva, all he asks is that Silva erect a life-size altar of him, a statue of him, and pray to it every night before bed. before bed. Crazy shit, dude. Like, this was Conor before Conor. And the buildup of this first fight, this dude had most of us believing he could actually pull it off against the untouchable Anderson Silva. And in all fairness, that's what he did. He did back it up the first 4.5 rounds of that first fight. He beat, I almost said Sonnen, he beat Anderson Silva pillar to post. He went in there, he dropped him on the feet multiple times, hurt him, took him down, beat him up on the ground. Round 4, halfway through, Anderson Silva throws up a Hail Mary triangle, chokes Sonnen out. Sonnen, in typical Sonnen fashion, said, "I thought that just meant I lost the round and the fight was over, and I still win the decision." You know what it is. Second fight, after a couple years away, they run the rematch. Of course, Anderson Silva's able to do it in a little bit more dominant fashion this time, finishing Sonnen in the second round after Sonnen tried the single most idiotic move I've ever seen a wrestler try against a striker of Anderson Silva's caliber. A spinning back fist where he stumbled and fell into the cage. Silva landed a knee to the body, finished him off there. So that is my number 10 spot for rivalries. Moving on to number 9. Tito Ortiz. Now, this is a throwback, dude. I think this was like 03. This is a throwback. Tito Ortiz on the right, Ken Shamrock on the left, known as the world's most dangerous man. He was from the early 90s, bro. Like, around the Hoist Gracie time. Fought Hoist, fought like guys like Tank Abbott, Don Fry. I don't know if he ever fought Mark Coleman, but a real OG in the game. Now, Tito Ortiz was... How this beef started is Tito Ortiz was coming off a win over a second Lion's Den fighter, which was Ken Shamrock's camp that he founded. It was called the Lion's Den. Notoriously just this ruthless, just torturous camp where they would beat the living shit out of each other. Tito was coming off a win over a second straight Lion's Den fighter. And afterwards, what ignited this beef was Tito. As soon as the ref stopped the fight, he looks right over at Ken Shamrock in the Lion's Den corner and flips him double middle fingers. Ken absolutely loses his shit, jumps up on the cage. He's like, "You're so disrespectful, man. How could you do that?" And of course, Tito, man, he was just such a good bad guy back in the day. Like, you're looking at like the OG bad boy of MMA, right? Like, Tito was just the OG bad boy. Like, he had insane cardio, insane wrestling, insane strength. He was a big light heavyweight, and he just didn't give a fuck, man. Riled Ken up. They do the first fight. Tito pretty dominantly wins it. Smashes Ken with elbows and ground and pound on the ground. After that, they run the Ultimate Fighter season, I think it was season 3. And it's just like, the whole show is just Tito Ortiz just fucking with Ken, dude. Like, it was so bad. Like, it just, like, you could tell, like, Tito, like, he was so in Ken's head, and Tito was really there to coach. Actually proved himself to be a pretty damn good coach of fighters. Ken Shamrock, it was clear from the jump. He was there to just fucking get at Tito. He just wanted to fight Tito. He didn't give a fuck about his guys whatsoever. That's why Tito's team really dominated that season, and it just pissed Ken off even more. They run the fight again. Tito wins it dominantly again, but in all fairness, it was kind of competitive wise, it was a very one-sided rivalry. But however, there was a lot of bad blood outside the cage, especially with the Ultimate Fighter. That's why I have this at the number 9 spot. Moving on, number 8. I got Frank Mir versus Brock Lesnar. Now, I feel like this bad blood and this beef really started with, I think it was UFC 80. Was it UFC 80 Rapid Fire? That was the one with BJ Penn, Joe Stevenson. Brock Lesnar, he had this big name, right? He was this big WWE star. He only had one fucking professional fight against like some jobber named Min Soo Kim and was making his UFC debut against Frank Mir, right? Fight starts. Brock is absolutely smashing him with those lunchbox fists. You know, he's getting out of submissions, easily scrambling around on the ground, beating the shit out of Frank Mir. Frank Mir, in true Frank Mir fashion, throws up a dangerous submission, heel hook, catches Brock, and that's where I believe this whole thing started. You fast forward a few years, Brock Lesnar has now claimed the heavyweight title. I believe this was his first defense. He was fresh off the win over Randy Couture. And this whole countdown, dude, was just Brock just kind of simmering, having to watch the replay of the last fight, and just really simmering, like having to watch Steve Mazzagatti have another late notorious stoppage where he was tapping on the ass of Frank Mir like 15 times before the ref called it. So he was not only simmering about the loss to Frank Mir, because Frank Mir let him know it too. Frank Mir, every chance he got, he's like, I have Brock's number, and he just can't handle that. That, not only did that make Brock simmer, also having to watch Steve Mazzagatti just like not calling off the fight despite him vigorously tapping on Frank Mir after he was caught in the heel hook just made him simmer even more. I mean, he was on the countdown watching this over and over to the point where he just got up, smashed a door, walked off, and this fight just had so much bad blood. They do the rematch, UFC 100. It was the main event. Frank Mir, ultimately, Brock was just too much for him, dude. He was ready for the submissions. He scrambled out. He just really smashed up Frank on the ground, completely dominated him, had him up against the cage, and just dropped some of the nastiest sledgehammers you'll ever see in the heavyweight division. Busted Frank up, got off him, was screaming at him, walked up to the cage, was like shaking the cage, spits foaming pouring out of his mouth. He's screaming. He looks at the crowd, flips the crowd off because they don't like him. Because, you know, Brock, of course, he was the bad guy. He was the heel. You know, coming from WWE, this is a role he was very good at. One of the best heels in heavyweight history. He's flipping off the crowd. He has his post-fight speech, and he's like, he had a golden horseshoe up his ass, and I took that out and beat him over the head with it. Woo! Like, it was just pure chaos. Undoubtedly, one of the best rivalries in UFC history, man. I mean, it was kind of short-lived. It was, 1-1. I wish they would have done a third fight, but, it is what it is. I see why they didn't. Brock really smashed him up in the second fight. So that's my number 8 spot. Moving on, number 7. I got Sugar Rashad Evans versus Quentin Rampage Jackson. Now, this really started with Rampage calling him out. I can't remember who he beat, but he called, he had that famous call out of Rashad where he's like, who wants to see some black on black crime? They run the Ultimate Fighter, and the whole Ultimate Fighter, dude, was just a slew of back and forth insults between the two of them. Like at multiple times, like you were just, as a fan watching this, you're like, oh my God, are these guys actually going to fight right now? Because they were nose to nose so many times in that season. And it looked like shit was going to jump off real quick. Fortunately for us as fans, it never did. And Rashad's team, I feel like I mean, it was kind of a back and forth season, but like you could see like all like the insults because I feel like Rashad was a bit more intelligent with his insults. Rampage was he was quick with it, right? He had some good catchy lines. And ultimately, like it just started to wear on Rampage. He got angrier and angrier throughout the season to the point of that famous scene where he just completely shreds shreds that cardboard door. King Kong's that shit, takes it off, slams it on the ground. He's jumping up and down on it and just completely losing his shit. Dana White's like, damn, this makes us look bad because look at how cheap our doors are. Look what he just did to that door. So they run the fight. It's kind of one-sided the first 2.5 rounds, right? Rashad is just, using that explosive wrestling, taking Rampage down, just outperforming him. Few minutes left in the fight. Rampage got so close. He drops Rashad Evans, almost finishes him off. Rashad's able to recover and kind of hold on for dear life to finish out that fight. This was only a one-fight rivalry, but again, with all the insults with the Ultimate Fighter, that was one of the most entertaining seasons we have seen to date. That's why I got this one at my number 7 spot. Moving on, number 6. Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, man. Like, dude, solid rivalry from the trash talk outside the cage, right? Like, I mean, dude, this beef started, like, after Colby Covington, like, Kamaru had just won the belt over Tyron Woodley. They were doing a post-fight after Colby Covington had beaten, I think it was RDA or it was Robbie Lawler for the interim belt, right? They bring Colby up. Kamaru's on the analyst desk. They bring Colby up, and that's where it all started. I mean, from jump, Colby was all about that smoke, man. He was ready for it. He hurled some insults to Kamaru, pissed Kamaru off to the point of Kamaru taking off his fucking jacket. And this is how it went. They're like, so do you think it's a possibility you guys fight in a couple months? And Kamaru's like, it's a possibility right now. It's a possibility right now. So that's where it all started. First, I mean, obviously the press conferences were so entertaining with these two. First fight, dude, one of the best welterweight fights we've seen in a long time. Just pure chaos. Back and forth. Both guys are trading. And this fight, they're just like, you know what? Fuck wrestling. I'm going to knock this dude out. And they just went toe-to-toe for, trading rounds back and forth up until the 5th, dude. And honestly, like, I think it was like 2-2 going into that 5th. 4th round, though, Kamaru breaks Covington's jaw. Or no, was it 3rd? I think it was 3rd, dude. So Covington fought an entire, round and a half with a broken jaw. That's how much he hated Kamaru Usman. Ultimately, Kamaru Usman puts him down, TKOs him in round 5. And, dude, I mean, I think, honestly, that's one of the most underrated post-fight interviews, because he's like, listen, the reason I'm the best in the world is because my mind is stronger than everybody's in the division. And he was talking about how this was for the whole damn world, him TKOing Covington. And that fight didn't, and that rivalry did not die down with that fight, right? It went on for almost like a year and a half, I believe, of Covington just saying that he slipped on a banana peel, about how Marty Fake Newsman cheated. I mean, there was a little bit of eye poke controversy because they say, that's how they say the finishing sequence happened. They say Usman poked him in the eye, and that's where he finished him. And they say, every time Kamaru would do an eye poke, the ref wouldn't call it. Every time Covington would get an eye poke, the ref would call it. So there was a lot of beef, a lot of tension around that. Covington has to get one more. He goes and he beats, Tyron Woodley pretty dominantly. Spends about a year calling Kamaru out. They have these guys both, Kamaru on the analyst desk, Covington off his win over Tyron Woodley. They pit them against each other again for the entertainment. And that one was underrated too, dude. Colby Covington's talking about how he has dragon energy. Kamaru's laughing his ass off. Kamaru's like, listen to me. I broke your face. Truly legendary trash talk between the two of these. A lot of great moments. Second fight, again, another close fucking fight. I had Kamaru banking the first 3 rounds. I had Covington winning the last 2. Good fight in Madison Square Garden. And that kind of wrapped it up from there. I mean, there was a little bit of beef for a few years. Covington continued to talk shit about Kamaru. But you could tell there was just a mutual respect between the two. Nowadays, you see, these guys shaking hands and, Kamaru Usman like passing by Covington's live stream and them shaking hands, being like, "What's up, man?" So, I mean, I guess the beef, I think they still don't like I don't think they really like each other that much. You're never going to see these two be friends, but like there is just a mutual respect now. There's no more beef. These guys are never going to fight again. Covington's washed. Kamaru's still up there. So this is my number 6 spot. Really, really solid beef and high level, dude. Very, very high level. This isn't any one-sided like rivalry here. Both guys were very evenly matched in both the fights they had. Moving on to the top 5. Coming in at that 5th spot, dude, this is a story of broken friendship, dude. We got Tito Ortiz on the right, Chuck the Iceman Liddell on the left. Now, these two were training partners for a long time, really good friends in the UFC. And, bro, like, Tito Ortiz was the UFC poster boy before Chuck Liddell. Tito was sitting here as the champ, really, like, taking easy fucking fights, right? Like, a small light heavyweight in Evan Tanner, who was more of a natural middleweight. Right, like you saw Evan Tanner move down to middleweight and then become a champ there. He was just beating guys like that, having a lot of easy like title defenses. Like I think Tito racked up like 5 title defenses. Meanwhile, Chuck Liddell's over here, kind of like this dark horse, this underdog, who's just taking out guys like Kevin Randleman, Babalu Sabral, like knocking off all these killers for Tito to have easy title defenses. And I think there was a conversation at one point between these guys, like, hey, dude, I don't think we're never gonna fight each other, man. We can't. Our friendship's worth too much. It gets to a point though, eventually, where Chuck is like, dude, I'm sick of sitting here knocking off all these contenders, not getting my shot. And at that point, it's like they're both like, you know what? Fuck the money. We're gonna do this. Now, this first fight, that's when they had beef, bro. And these guys probably had beef for a couple years after they decided that their friendship wasn't worth the money they're getting paid, and they both had goals. They both, obviously Tito wanted to remain champ, Chuck wanted to become champ. Tito was in the way of that. For about 2 years, this beef simmered up. These guys just hurling insults at each other back and forth. By the time this fight happened, though, Tito had lost the belt to Randy Couture, got absolutely smoked. Chuck Liddell had lost to Randy Couture. These guys matched up for a number 1 contenders fight. Chuck put it on him. I believe he stopped him in round 2. And then obviously the rest is history. With you look at where their careers ended from there. Tito's time was kind of over, dude. Like, he was okay, but like we were entering the Chuck Liddell, the Iceman era, right? Where Chuck started to stack title defenses. I think he stacked 4. Fights Tito again years later, UFC 66. Kind of the same thing. Puts him out, I think, round 2 or round 3. TKO. They ran the Ultimate Fighter like years later, and it just didn't have as much juice at that point. Tito ultimately ended up pulling out of that fight, leaving the show. They brought in Rich Franklin, who, brutally knocked out Chuck Liddell. And it's like, it didn't even end there, bro. Like, these guys fought like a few years ago when Chuck was like 50 years old. And Tito finally fucking beat him. And the way this man was celebrating, you would have thought he beat prime Chuck Liddell to get the belt back. Like, this is just a legendary rivalry. And these ones that started with friendship, where a friendship had to be broken, and then these guys became bitter rivals, like, you have to place those higher on the list. This was a long-running one, even though the last win for Ortiz, like, bro, Chuck, you're talking about a Chuck Liddell who's coming off, like, being brutally knocked out, like, 5 times. They, forcing him to fucking retire. Him being gone for years and being, like, a 50-year-old old man, bro. Not a legit last win, but regardless, one of the top rivalries in UFC history. Let's move on to number 4. I think I spent a little bit too long on this one. Jorge Masvidal, Colby Covington, dude, another story of friendship. I cannot remember. I tried to look this up. There was a YouTube channel where it was way, way back in the day, where it was a documentary style series with Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, right? This is before Covington. I don't think he was in the UFC yet, and Masvidal obviously was in the UFC at this point. Still early days. This was lightweight Jorge Masvidal. And it's like, they had a camera crew that followed these guys around. These guys were roommates. Like, these guys were like you and your boys back in the day, like being roommates and making late night food runs and talking about chicks and drinking beer. And I mean, I know they were both fighters, but like, dude, it was so relatable. Like, these dudes kicked it all the time. They had this little like apartment, right? Where they just, I don't know, maybe it was a house, but these guys spent the whole time together, right? Really training, being roommates, fucking off when they weren't training, probably banging bitches, just having a good old time, right? Where this rivalry started was when Covington was in the UFC and they were both welterweights. Covington was on the rise, Masvidal was on the rise, and it just got to a point where they're like, dude, it was kind of the same thing as like Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz. They're like, I don't know. Either guy says that there was a betrayal on the other guy's behalf, so it's kind of a he said type of deal, right? But it just got to a point where Covington, like, he really wasn't liked in ATT, right? He ran his mouth a lot. As soon as, like, according to Masvidal, as soon as Covington tried to start, he created this character because he was afraid he was going to get cut. That's where the beef started, because he started being an asshole in the gym with his big kind of MAGA Trump, personality. And that's kind of where the fracture in the friendship happened, dude. Like, ultimately, Colby got kicked out of ATT, went on to MMA Masters, and that's where it started. Fast forward to when they actually have a fight scheduled. I mean, dude, it was real personal, real personal back and forth, right? Covington insulted Masvidal's parenthood, his wife, his kids, just you name it. He really went after Masvidal in a personal way. The fight plays out really one-sided. I mean, it was pretty disappointing from Jorge Masvidal. He came in kind of looking like shit, looking pudgy, and just Colby put that pace on him for 25 minutes, dude. Even after the fight, the beef still wasn't died down. It still hadn't died down, dude. Despite fighting for 25 minutes, I mean, Covington was like in his face. They're still talking shit. This is one of those ones that spilled, where the drama equals the drama isn't over. Even when they unlock that cage door and they're both walking out, the fight's over. Months later, Masvidal found Colby Covington at a club in Miami walking out, punched him in the jaw, knocked out one of his teeth. And there was a whole legal process here, dude. Like, Masvidal was brought up on criminal charges. Colby wasn't allowed to talk about this guy for a year. I mean, this is one of those, like, personal bad blood, fractured friendship style rivalries. Even though it was one-sided, even though it was one fight, a lot of history between these guys, a lot of bad blood. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people thought that these guys were kind of just playing it off, like, and were really friends behind the scene. But I think all those rumors really got put to rest when Masvidal confronted him in the streets and punched him in the jaw, dude. So that's what I got at my, is that number 4? 3? Number 4, I think. Yeah. Number, what was that, 3? Hold on. Let me go back. So we got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Okay, number 3. TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt, dude. 2-fight series. Dude. Shout out to the Mystic Mac himself, Conor McGregor. He fucking called this shit, bro. He called this shit. He's like, dude, TJ's a snake in the grass and you guys don't even see it, man. You have a snake living under your roof, man. Like, this guy's a little snake. He just has no loyalty. He's changing up on you, like, and they all laughed him off at the time. And Cody, dude, this is how crazy this is, bro. This is so far removed that, like, Cody Garbrandt got in Conor's face and tried to fight him on The Ultimate Fighter for disrespecting TJ Dillashaw. That's insane. Because you look at the aftermath between these two. For Cody Garbrandt to step up to defend TJ Dillashaw when McGregor called him a snake in the grass, truly crazy. McGregor called this to the T. He predicted this. TJ ultimately had trained owes a lot of his early career to Alpha Male, Uriah Faber, those guys. Dwayne Ludwig was a coach there, right? And he really favored TJ Dillashaw, decided to really take TJ under his wing. But it just got to a point where Dwayne's like, you know what, dude, I'm tired of being a coach here. I want to open up my own gym back in Colorado. And that's when TJ jumped ship, dude. He was trying, well, I think initially TJ was trying to jump back and forth between camps. And at one point, he's just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm moving to Colorado, dude. I'm going to train with Dwayne. I appreciate you guys for everything. I'm leaving. Peace. And I think it was so abrupt that, like, Uriah was like, what the fuck, dude? What is this? So that's where the beef started, dude. And Cody, you know, not the smartest human being in the world. He took that shit personally. It was on site after that, you know, because Cody, it doesn't take much for this guy to be like, you know what? Fuck you. It's on site. It's on site. So after that, Cody decided it was on site. TJ became hated by all team Alpha Male despite being the only guy to win a fucking belt for them. And they ran the Ultimate Fighter, right? They ran the Ultimate Fighter, and it was just constant, like, Cody trying to get at TJ. At one point, he tried to choke TJ out. He tried to choke TJ out, and he's like, you know, I just had to do it. It was like an eagle latching up a snake. You know, I had to snatch up the snake. And it was just back and forth. Even Uriah got into it on that show. Uriah and TJ were going at it, arguing, and you know, they run the fight again. And that first fight was brutal, dude, because I was going for Cody. We all hated TJ back in the day. We thought TJ truly was a snake in the grass. Probably was. I like him now, but back then, yeah, he was an asshole. First fight, dude. I mean, and this was kind of similar in both fights. Like, Cody's like picking him apart round one, drops him at the end of round one, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, snake in the grass is finally, Cody's taking a lawnmower to that shit. Round two comes back. TJ lands I can't remember what he landed, but he hurts Cody, drops him, finishes him off on the feet. And dude, that was so humiliating, that first fight, because ref calls the fight off. Cody is like standing there out of it. TJ is literally nose to nose with him, screaming in his face, celebrating. And Cody's just like truly one of the most brutal moments. As a fan, it was like, fuck, dude, no. They run the second fight, very almost exactly similar, right? Cody starts out, he's looking sharp, he hurts TJ, and then second round, TJ comes back, lands a head kick, finishes Cody off, finishes that rivalry off for good. And you know today, bro, I mean, I don't think TJ really has any hate for Cody anymore, but you know Cody's like, fuck that dude. If these guys... Dude, listen. If these guys see each other in a city market, please believe it's still on site, even today, for Cody. Cody's stepping to TJ. It's on site. You know, it doesn't even matter if they both have the kids, the family. There's old grandmas around trying to shop. It's on site, dude. You know this still today. So that's why I have this at my number 3 spot. Again, another story of, like, I wouldn't say friendship, but training partners. These guys were, like, close in the gym. They trained a lot together. You know, they're pretty evenly matched, and it just took a turn for the worse, man. Now, moving on to the number 2 spot. I got Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier. Now, allegedly, the beef kind of started for Cormier first because they met at a wrestling event. I think it was like back in 2010, right? Before DC was even in the UFC at this point, right? Like, DC was at this wrestling event, you know, and Jon Jones met him, and he's like, hey, I bet I could take you down. And, dude, that just pissed DC off, man. Like, just that little slight, you know? And I don't know. I guess there's a little more to that. Jon was, like, acting like he didn't really know who DC was, and he was like, I bet I could take you down. You're probably not all that. And that's just like, that was the ultimate insult for DC, dude. A man telling him he could take him down, not really showing him that respect as a 2-time Olympian that, you know, he felt he was owed. That's where it started. You fast forward to the first fight finally getting made. It's just back and forth. That was the fight where, you know, they were matched up before the fight to do a face-off. And I'm trying to think how this goes. I think DC, he put his hands, like Jon got too close, got up in his face. DC pushed his hands. DC pushed him, and that's when John Jones came back and started swinging. Both these guys are swinging. I think DC. I don't know if John got off some ground and pound. Like, that's such a hard like angle in that video because it looks like John, like DC slips off the stage onto the ground, and John like goes down and is like lands some ground and pound on him. I don't know. Maybe he didn't. Maybe like they stepped. Maybe some security stepped between him. But that like really ignited things. For those two. I mean, that was where you got like the back when they thought the cameras were off and and DC's like, I wish they'd let me over to your side so I could spit in your fucking face. And John's like, you know, I'd absolutely kill you if you ever did something like that. And I'd like to see you try, John. I'd like to see you try kill me. You think I'd just let you kill me, John? Dude, that shit was cinema. Fight plays out. It's pretty one-sided. John ends up winning a unanimous decision. Despite, you know, partying on cocaine a week before the fight, manages to just outclass DC. And dude, like that, there was a delay between this fight and like the next fight because like after that, as you know, shit just came crashing down for John. Personally, I mean, it was just like the hit and run on a pregnant woman. It was just, you know, just a snowball of shit, right? They're scheduled to meet UFC 200. DC's in shape. He's trained hard. John tests positive, has to pull out of that fight. Like a week before, in steps Silva, yada, yada, yada. Second fight finally plays out. DC's looking good. You could argue DC maybe even won the first round. Was winning that fucking fight against John Jones before getting head kicked in the second. And that ain't where it ends, dude. Shortly after that, John fucking pops. For like oh my god, what is it? What is the name of that? What? A pictogram of shit in his system, pictogram of PEDs, right? They strip John Jones. DC has to fight for it again, and it's just like, you know, I don't know. I feel like it kind of died down. I mean, again, these are two guys that I wouldn't say it's on site because I mean, obviously DC interviewed John Jones on like the ESPN MMA channel, like before he fought Stipe, I believe, or Gone, one of the two. I don't think there's like it's an on-site kind of beef anymore, but again, like definitely one of the greatest rivalries, one of the most bad blood matchups of all time. You know, especially for a competitor like DC that just ate at him, dude, and that will always eat at him. The fact he was never able to beat John Jones, you know, because every single thing this man's accomplished, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time, DC. 2-division champion. Great fucking resume. But again, you're always going to have those Jones fans being like, yeah, but you were always second best during your time. You never beat John Jones. Which, you know, it is what it is. You know, even though John cheated in the second fight to beat him, it is what it is. One of the greatest rivalries. But still, I still have this at my number 2 spot, dude. Number 1, dude, you have to do McGregor-Khabib, man. It's just, you have to. The level that this went to was so much deeper than fighting, dude. So much deeper than fighting. Like, dude, these guys used to be cordial. Like, you go way, way back in the archives, and you got Khabib, like tweeting, good job to Conor after a recent fight he had won, right? Like, good job. I'd love to train with you at some point. And then you got McGregor responding, oh, man, yeah, brother, absolutely. Let me know next time you're in Vegas and we can train. That's where these guys were at. Somewhere along the lines, that's when, like, Khabib started getting frustrated, right? Because you fast forward a little bit. At this point, Khabib's ranked, like, 6th. Conor's the champion. He just knocked out Alvarez. Went on this long hiatus. And Khabib just kept working his way up. Wasn't getting the shot until, you know, he had that call-out. Actually, no. It was on the same card as Conor. Right when Conor had won the second belt at lightweight. He had dominated Michael Johnson, and that's where, you know, you had the famous post-fight call-out. Your guy tapped like chicken. Into the year fighting for belt. Crazy. You know, because at this point, Khabib's like, you know what? I'm not going to be that humble guy. I'm going to talk some shit, dude. I need to get this fight. I need to make this fight. It just was a case of, like, you're where I need to be. You're in the way. You didn't deserve this shot. I deserve this shot. I'm undefeated in the UFC. You lost one fight. Came back, won the next one. Or no, you lost this fight. You got that fight back, and now you're fighting for a belt? Dude, I haven't fucking lost. What is this? That's where the beef started. You know, they had some back and forth on social media. Nothing too serious yet. Where this shit got ignited was Artem Lobov, Conor's teammate, talking shit about Khabib, saying Khabib's a coward. Khabib finds this man at an arena, corners him with his goons, gets up in his face, and just basically, like, bullies him, bro. Like, they just bullied that guy. You look at it, they just bullied Artem. They got in his face. Khabib's like, don't you ever say shit about me. I can't do the Russian accent, so I'm just going to speak in an American accent, paraphrasing the Russian accent. He's like, don't you ever say shit about me. They intimidated him. They bullied him. Conor got wind of this, saw this, and all hell broke loose, bro. Conor gets on a flight from Ireland with like fucking 30 goons, comes down to, I can't remember what arena it was in. Comes down to the arena. I think Khabib was even fighting. Wasn't he? No, he wasn't fighting. I don't know. I don't know what was going on, but they had the fighters. It was fight week. They were all on a bus. Conor and his goons come storming through there. You know, obviously Conor gets the dolly, smashes the glass out of the bus. It was so bad that Michael Chiesa got a cut in his eye. I think one of the female fighters had gotten a cut in the eye or gotten a cut on them. They were fucking terrified. Michael Chiesa had to be pulled from the card. Otherwise, you know, oh no, this was for the vacant belt. This was Khabib fighting for the vacant belt. And it probably would have been Chiesa, dude, if he wouldn't have gotten injured by the glass getting into his eye. Ultimately, he had to be pulled from the card. In stepped Ally Quinta to fight Khabib for the vacant lightweight belt. Now, we fast forward after all that chaos, all the legal trouble for Conor after smashing the dolly. Of course, naturally, the UFC used the promo. They used the promo to build the fight. McGregor versus Khabib, the bad blood matchup. And dude, it was dark from the start, dude. Conor showed up to the press conference completely drunk. I mean, dude, I was a big Conor fan throughout his career, and it's just like, this was one of those fights I couldn't get behind him in this, dude. Like, this dude showed up completely drunk, slurring his words. It was hard to understand him. He's getting up. He's like, do something about it. You know, Khabib refuses to drink his proper number 12. That sets him off because he's drunk. You don't think clearly when you're drunk. Every little slight pisses you off. You know, Khabib refuses his drink. He's trying to get in his face for that. He's just over the top, just like yelling at Khabib, slurring his words. Ultimately, the fight happens. And it's just bad for Conor, bro. Like, he did manage to snag around, but most of that fight was Khabib taking him down, smashing him. He's on top of Conor, and he's like, let's talk now. Let's talk now. You know, he's like, hey, motherfucker, let's talk now. While he's smashing him from the top with elbows and vicious ground and pound. Round 4, chokes Conor out. Literally doesn't want to let the choke out, bro. He has the choke. The ref's like trying to pull him off, and he's like, and then Conor, like, the fight ends with, like, Conor just slumped against the cage, having just been slumped against the cage, exhausted, beaten up for most of that fight, and now choked out. He's slumped on the cage. Khabib is standing over him, screaming at him, takes his mouth guard out, throws it at Conor's corner, and then I think Dylan Dennis was the one who set this off. He's talking shit like, you're a bitch, bro. You'd never do that shit to me. I'm a world-class jiu-jitsu player. Which causes Khabib to go charge at the cage, jump over, out into the crowd, fight, start trying to fight Dylan Dennis. There's a brawl ensuing. McGregor's in the cage. He finally manages to get back to his feet. He's so exhausted. These fucking daggies are fucking jumping the cage and ran straight at Conor and exhausted Conor and are teeing off on Conor against the cage. Like, that was what ensued, bro. It was like, the bad blood in this fight is so, like, much deeper than any other fight we've ever seen. It's the highest selling pay-per-view because of that, right? 2 million pay-per-view. I think it is. I'm not counting the Sphere, dude. I'm not counting the Sphere, okay? $700 for nosebleeds. I'm not counting it, dude. This is one of the highest selling pay-per-views in history. The bad blood was so deep. Dude, you know this is a fight where it's like, even today, dude, If you left these guys in a back alley alone, Khabib is fucking killing Conor, dude. I truly believe that. He is killing Conor. I think there was even a recent thing where they interviewed Islam or something, or they asked Islam about a potential fight with Conor, and even Islam is like, dude, I don't want to fight him in the UFC. I'd like to street fight him because he wants to kill Conor. These guys all like, obviously I think they've let it go, but dude, even to today, like every little downfall Khabib has, like the whole tax thing where he got in trouble for some kind of tax thing in Russia. Conor's celebrating that. Conor never misses a beat to call Khabib a little rat. Any chance he gets, he's calling him a rat. He's celebrating this man's downfall even to this day. And even to this day, Khabib would kill this motherfucker if he met him in the streets. Islam would love to street fight him. Like, this is a beef that will never die down. This isn't just like an on-site thing today. If these guys meet and there's no one else around, it ain't just on-site. This is like somebody's dying, and it's most likely gonna be Conor, right? I truly believe Khabib would kill this man, right? He insulted his religion. He insulted his wife. It was just all the shit. All the shit. Hell, even this shit was so deep that even after Khabib's dad died, Conor had that fucking tweet, which is, since been deleted, of, oh, father good or COVID good, father bad. Just fucked up shit. Essentially just like taking a dig at the death of Khabib's father. That's how deep this one was, dude. So that's the list. That is the top 10. Let me know any I may have missed that maybe deserve to be on this list. Drop those in the comments. Like and subscribe. Till next time.